has had a number of names. In fact, this afternoon I found out another one. It's been called the Terrace Park Market, the Terrace Market, and today Maggie Taberke tells me that her Scottish mother called it the wee store. We've always referred to it as the market, for those of us who enjoyed its convenience and the friendliness of all the proprietors. And just for fun, I made a trip back in time to the market. So let me show you what my bag holds. Let's pretend this was in the 1970s. Let's see. Meat from the market. Ground beef, 89 cents a pound. Well, we called it hamburger then, but that was a good deal. And let's see, what about this? Pork chops, 59 cents a pound. I still remember when I wrote in my journal, when our early married years, I had to pay $0.25 for a pork chop today. It was outrageous. And then, of course, you could always get candy at the market. And yes. You notice it's empty, but I did not empty it before I came here. And there were also such necessities, eggs. So the market provided many things for those of us who enjoyed it over all the years, however many years we've lived here. The market's predecessor was the Beck's Grocery, which was at the corner of Amherst and Newtown Road. You say Amherst and Newtown Road? Well, Newtown Road ultimately became Elm Avenue. So it was at that corner, been long gone. Then in 1893, Terrace Park Incorporated and the village expansion began. By 1903, a new town needed a place for its council to meet, rather than meeting in somebody's home or a doctor's office or in the post office. So bonds were issued for $1,550 to buy a lot to build this building on. They were issued, and now the town would have its own town hall and its own office space. It must have been a fast building project because the market is registered as being on site by 1903, which is the year the bonds were issued. So it was purchased at the corner of Harvard and Terrace Place. Still exists there today. And James Chapman was employed to draw up the plans and get it underway. And incidentally, the plans are available. They were donated by Mary Chapman to Terrace Park, probably found in the old Chapman Dairy Barn up on Shawnee Run Road. So the building that was constructed housed the council chambers on the second floor. On the first floor, Louis Conkling and his wife maintained the store, and they lived across what is now the village green at 615 Amherst, so they could just run across the green to open up and close up. And they multitasked. They were both the grocers and the postmasters. They were on the first floor of the building for 18 years, from 1903 to 1921. And we might say that that building wore many shingles. It was also the village polling place, the dance hall, the grocery, sometimes post office, and probably the first village phone was installed in that building. Tickets for the trains that passed through daily were also on sale there. So if you were going to go to Cincinnati or elsewhere, you had to stop in what we call the market to get your ticket. So 415 Terrace Place was a very busy place. It was really the hub of the town at that time. In 1925, the village headquarters moved way across town to where they are today, to the community building. And the market location was still in its same place, and followed then a succession of storekeepers. Following the Conklings were Louis and Elsie Bosch, Hugh and Elizabeth Gallagher, John Barnett, Durward and Helen Hughes, and Helen Hughes just died in January at 101. Maybe being a storekeeper is a good thing. Al Huber, Robert Rule, Bill and Carolyn Vintage, Lou and Carol Farnback, and Gerda and Jerry Bronheim. And I have to say that the last proprietor has graced us with her presence today, and she's trying to hide White over there in the corner in a purple coat. Gerda, why don't you stand up and say hello? Well, she has a bad back. I don't want to ask her to stand up. But she was very pleasant surprise when she came in. In 1932, the Bosch's ownership, during the Bosch's ownership, there was a fire at the market. And to save his brand new meat grinder, Louis dragged it out of the building onto the sidewalk, and then the firemen, and I think it might have been visiting firemen who were helping maybe from Milford, tried to attach the fire hose to it. Probably because it was painted fire engine red, probably the color of our house now. And that might also be the time when the Bosches lived on the second floor of 333 Harvard, which is where Loie, Kirby, Wirt lived at that time. And so they occupied the second, maybe while the renovation was going on. And also, it might have been the reason why people remember from that era of going in the side door of the market and then up a ramp. And if you look at some of the pictures, well, I'm not sure this shows it, but you can see like the windows are graduated, like that would be the ramp. And obviously, to bring the products in, going up a ramp would be easier than carrying stuff upstairs. So then the customers came in that way too. Two former proprietors of the market graciously spared a lot of time and a lot of fun in offering their memories. Carol and Lou Farnback purchased the market in 1973. When they arrived, Charlie Overly, who was Loie's stepdad, greeted them and said, "I come with the market." That means he was there to shovel snow and help in any other way he could. Charlie was a wonderful man like that. I remember when he saved our daughter from running her fingers through the chain on her bicycle. She was having a great time, and Charlie ran over and said, "Oh, no, don't do that." So he was always there to help. Upon purchase, the Farnbacks made a major change in the market. They air conditioned it. And then when they were cleaning the attic, they found some very interesting things lurking up there. Wicks for kerosene lamps. There are days when we need those when the power goes out, but those are gone. Old cans of black stove paint, some antique glass jars, and rat traps. Now, as I talked to Paul Kennedy, who currently owns the building, he said, this could have been useful early on when he bought the building and tore down the bottle shed behind, because the bottle shed was a happy home for numerous rats. But anyway, the rat traps were stored in the attic. They had help in the store with Carol Farnback's dad, Harry King, and sometimes from their children, Mark and Wendy. Lou was the butcher, and Carol managed the front of the store. Her dad, Harry, loved to see the kids come in. They just brought him such joy as they came in with their bottles for their 2-cent deposits. And many times they wouldn't have enough pennies to buy the candy they wanted. So Harry would reach into his pocket and subsidize their purchases. And Carol told him, she said, "Dad, you don't need to do that." But we had the feeling that he just wanted to keep the account straight and didn't want anybody short 2 pennies. So he would help them up on that. A favorite patron was, and many of you will remember, young John Bernard. He had a classic format that he followed. He would come in, he would get his bottle of Tropicana orange juice, and he would walk up to Carol's dad and say, "Grandpa, open this for me." And that would be it. He would walk out and come back in the next day or so. Mark, their son, must have loved getting his driver's license because then he could deliver groceries around town. He would take them into unlocked houses if nobody was home, and if necessary, he'd put them in the refrigerator for you. Where's Mark when you need him now? Wouldn't that be great? Carol also said that there was an occasional over-the-counter family counseling service available. No cost for that. That was their gift. I asked our kids what they remembered, and Christy said, "Oh, Mom, I remember taking Rusty, our dog, across the village green, tying him to the rail, and going in and with my nickel and buying my candy. It was kind of a coming of age right in Terrace Park when you could finally go by yourself and do that. Dan still is looking online to try to buy those foot-long bubble gums. And what flavors did they come in? Grape and cherry, but he can't find them. And that was a mouthful too. But there was no profit in gum and candy. That was just for fun. The money crops were meat and wine. One lovely neighbor who will remain forever nameless, but she is here, managed to take a box of mushrooms, and as she would walk out of the store, having paid for them, she would eat the mushrooms. And often they were all gone before she got out of the store, but I promised I would not name her. So you can look around and see who looks guilty in this group. They were paid for. There was always, well, maybe not always, but occasionally a simmering crock pot of beef liver, and it always sold out. Is that an interesting thought today? It would be interesting to know if that would happen today. Carol said she really thought they would have done better on the profit margin if Lou hadn't insisted on cutting out every shred of fat on the steaks and the chops. He was just very persistent about doing that as cleanly as he could. The market also had a credit system for its regular members. Carol Farmbach says they were thankful that only $200 remained unpaid when they sold. And I thought, $200 in 1978 was a sizable chunk of money. In fact, it's not just pocket change today. So if any of you remember that you didn't pay your bill and you didn't know where to send it, I'll give you Carol's address later. But I think it was typical of her wonderful, positive outlook. She didn't say, well, we had $200 that weren't paid. She was very thankful that that's all that was left unpaid. I recall being in the market one day when one of the Milam twins came in. And he had his purchase, and as he's walking out the door, he says to the smiling cashier, "Just put it on my account." And the cashier said, "Okay, Dick." But I'm done. A case of Terrace Park mistaken identity. After 5 years of ownership, Lou Farmbach had a heart attack, and in 1978 the market was sold. Gerda and Jerry Bronheim were the new owners. Gerda has a story that's really quite amazing. She had immigrated to the United States on December 19, 1956. Other family members had arrived from Pittsburgh as early as 1911 and had moved here to go to the Mount Auburn Christian College. And Gerda's aunt was here, so she sponsored her to come into the city. She spoke no English, but she had a very necessary skill. She had learned the art of butchering while living in a refugee camp in Denmark. The family had left Germany, which was just in shambles after the war, and her family went to live in a camp there. Her father had no money to pay to feed her, but he met a butcher there who agreed to take her on as kind of an indentured servant, it almost sounded like. And for 80 hours a week, she was paid $2 a week. And she did this for the 2 years that they were in Denmark before she came to the United States. And from that $2 a week salary, she brought $15 with her to the States. And that's how she got her start in the United States. At the market, Gerda recalls many fun things. There are many, too many. We would be here all afternoon if I told you all the fun things she shared with me. One of them was making 30 pounds of chicken salad every Wednesday. Gone, all bought, all gone. Another favorite was beef stroganoff, which she made. A springtime sale of geraniums was a little sideline that she created. But one of the blessings of the market was that it offered the answer to that eternal question: what's for dinner? Living across the village green from the market, I could just hop across the village green, go in, go to the meat cave and say, ah, there's dinner. Can't do that anymore, but it was so wonderful to have that at our fingertips. The market closed one time for a 5-day vacation, using the term very loosely, because during that 5-day vacation, Gerda cut up 11 sides of beef. I want you to picture 11 sides of beef. She did it for those who like to keep their freezer stocked with roasts, steaks, ground beef, ribs, soup meat, whatever. But she cut up 11, I guess that's 5.5 cows. I wonder what happened to the other half. Half a cow wandering out there somewhere. But in spite of their wonderful hard work effort, the market showed no profit. It was a time when delivery costs were soaring and the big box stores came in, squeezing out many of the little people. And finally, they decided it was time to close. 1980. And that happened to the chagrin of many. In fact, the younger generation, some of them were downright angry because the kids didn't understand the concept of non-profit business, so they thought they were just being mean and closing down the market. The Bronheims were very grateful that they had the opportunity to do this. I don't know what Gerda would have done with her energy if she hadn't been doing this, because that was a very energetic woman. The price they purchased it for was the price they sold it for. So they didn't lose money on that, but then they had to take out all the electrical equipment, pay to have it taken out, and some of the shelving. In fact, Ellis Ronsley's greenhouse inherited some of the shelving, but that's gone now too. Then we have another Terrace Parker to thank, and that's Paul Kennedy. He so loved the market in his years of growing up here and living here later with his family that he purchased the market for his offices. As plans were being drawn up for the remodeling of the market being converted into office space, Paul had a stipulation. He wanted the market to have the same face that it had had as he remembered it and as many of us remembered it. And the various faces of the market you can see in some of these pictures. I'm sorry, Rosie Shundage's lovely painting is down below here. It's a little hard to see, but he wanted it to look like the market of his youth and that he remembered it. The remodeling restored the second floor, which you can see in some of the photos was kind of clipped off after the fire. That was restored into a peak roof. And so he brought back a bit of that treasure in a way that it hadn't looked in several years. Paul says it's still very nostalgic to look out and see kids walking along the wall in front of the market as they've done for decades. They also laugh when they look out and see somebody try to pick up the quarter that Mike Kennedy dropped in the sidewalk. And if you haven't seen it, go get it. You just pick it up. So, a Terrace Park treasure remains, though with a different purpose today, thanks to Paul Kennedy. And I would like to also thank Carol Cole for her research on the market, which I relied on heavily, and to Carol Farnback and Gerda and Jerry Bronheim for all of the stories they shared about this treasure. In fact, over on the table, there is a treasure that Gerda is donating to the Historical Society. Is somebody there can pick that shirt up, if you don't mind? Yeah. It says Terrace Market. And Gerda suspects that might have been a shirt for a t-ball team or some team. And it's a stitched-on lettering. It's like, wow, somebody really worked hard on that. So anyway, that's a gift from Gerda to the Historical Society. As you walk by, drive by the Terrace, or the Kennedy, now Kennedy and Associates building, that old market, remember you are passing by a Terrace Park treasure, a multi-purpose treasure, an office, a post office, a dance hall, a grocery store, a town hall, polling place, ticket office, all memories of years gone by in the heart of the village.